The morning rush at Café Lumière had finally subsided, leaving behind the familiar scent of freshly ground coffee beans and warm pastries. Nora Bennett wiped down the marble countertop with practiced efficiency, her dark brown hair pulled back into a neat ponytail that swayed with each movement. At 27 years old, she had perfected the art of making espresso while simultaneously calculating her monthly savings in her head, a skill born from necessity rather than choice. The cafe occupied the ground floor of a gleaming glass tower in downtown Seattle, catering to executives, lawyers, and investors who treated their morning cappuccinos like essential business meetings. Nora had worked there for nearly 2 years, and she knew most of the regular customers by their orders before they even approached the counter. There was Margaret, the kind corporate lawyer who always left generous tips. Thomas, the startup founder, who practiced his pitch presentations while waiting for his Americano. And then there was Vincent Sterling. Vincent pushed through the heavy oak doors at exactly 9:30, just as he did every Tuesday and Thursday. He wore a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than Nora's monthly rent, and his silver watch caught the morning sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Everything about him radiated wealth and confidence, from his perfectly styled black hair to the Italian leather briefcase he carried. "Good morning, Mr. Sterling," Nora greeted him with a professional smile, the usual double espresso with a splash. "Of cream?" Vincent nodded curtly, already pulling out his phone. He moved to his preferred corner table without acknowledging her further response, settling into the leather chair with the air of someone who owned everything around him. Nora prepared his drink with careful precision, ensuring the temperature and foam ratio met his exacting standards. She had learned early that Vincent Sterling noticed every detail and had no hesitation pointing out imperfections. As she delivered his espresso, she noticed the business magazine spread across his table, its cover featuring a bold headline about emerging tech markets. Vincent was engrossed in an article, his finger tracing lines of text as he read. Nora placed the cup on the coaster and prepared to step away. But a phrase from the article caught her eye. "Excuse me," Vincent said sharply, looking up, his steel-gray eyes fixed on her. "Is there something interesting you find on my reading material?" Nora felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I apologize, Mr. Sterling. I just noticed the article about blockchain integration in supply chain management. It's a fascinating topic." Vincent leaned back in his chair, a slight smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. "Fascinating," he repeated, his tone dripping with condescension. "And what would a barista know about blockchain technology?" The question hung in the air between them like a challenge. Nora could feel other customers glancing their way, sensing the tension. She had two choices: retreat politely as expected or stand her ground. Something in Vincent's expression, that absolute certainty that she was beneath his intellectual level, made her decision easier. "I know that while blockchain offers transparency and security benefits for supply chains, most companies implementing it face significant challenges with scalability and interoperability," Nora responded evenly. "The article mentions 3 case studies, but it fails to address the energy consumption concerns that make blockchain environmentally unsustainable for large-scale logistics operations." Vincent's smirk faltered. He set down his cup with more force than necessary. "You read academic papers on blockchain technology in your spare time?" "Among other things," Nora replied. The condescension in his voice sparked something defiant within her. "I also follow developments in artificial intelligence, venture capital trends, and emerging market dynamics. The internet provides access to the same information available to everyone, regardless of their job title." A businessman at the adjacent table lowered his newspaper, openly listening now. Vincent noticed, and his jaw tightened. He gestured to the empty chair across from him. "Sit down for a moment." Nora glanced toward the counter where her co-worker, Pete, was handling the few remaining customers. He gave her a small nod. She sat, carefully on the edge of the chair, maintaining perfect posture. Let me understand this correctly. Vincent began, folding his hands on the table. You believe you comprehend the complexities of modern technology and business strategy well enough to critique published articles? I don't believe I comprehend everything, Nora said, but I know enough to recognize when an article presents an incomplete picture. That piece discusses blockchain benefits without adequately addressing implementation costs, regulatory uncertainty, or the fact that many supply chain problems can be solved with simpler, more efficient database solutions. Companies rush toward trendy technology without evaluating whether it truly serves their needs. Vincent studied her with new intensity. What else do you know about technology trends? Nora met his gaze steadily. I know that most venture capital funding currently flows toward artificial intelligence startups, but over 60% of them will fail within 3 years because they're solutions searching for problems rather than addressing genuine market needs. I know that sustainable technology and clean energy investments are growing at 23% annually, but they remain underfunded relative to their potential impact. I know that the next wave of successful companies will likely focus on solving fundamental human problems rather than creating addictive apps that monetize attention. Where did you acquire this knowledge? Vincent demanded. His tone had shifted from mockery to genuine curiosity, mixed with disbelief. Free online courses from universities, business podcasts I listened to during my commute, research papers available through open-access journals, industry, reports that companies publish for public relations purposes. Nora paused. Knowledge isn't locked behind paywalls for those willing to invest time instead of money. Vincent picked up his espresso, taking a slow sip while regarding her over the rim of the cup. The cafe had grown quieter, with several customers now unabashedly watching their exchange. And what do you do with all this knowledge? Make better coffee? The sarcasm was back, but it sounded hollow now, almost defensive. Nora recognized it for what it was, the instinctive response of someone whose assumptions had been challenged. I use it to make better decisions about my own future, Nora answered. I save 70% of my income and invest it according to principles I've researched and tested. I evaluate opportunities and risks. I build skills that will help me create something meaningful eventually. Working here provides stability while I prepare for what comes next. And what comes next? Vincent asked. The question emerged softer than his previous interrogation. That depends on many factors, Nora said, but I don't intend to remain a barista forever. This job serves a purpose in my current situation. It doesn't define my capabilities or limit my potential. Vincent set down his cup and leaned forward. Most people in your position would have walked away the moment I questioned their intelligence, or they would have apologized and retreated. You did neither. Instead, you engaged directly and demonstrated knowledge that frankly surprises me. He paused. I misjudged you. The admission caught Nora off guard. Vincent Sterling didn't strike her. As someone who often acknowledged mistakes, I employed dozens of analysts and consultants who went to prestigious universities, Vincent continued. Yet you just identified a critical weakness in that article that none of them mentioned when I discussed it yesterday. He tapped the magazine. They saw what they expected to see. You saw what was actually there. Nora didn't respond immediately. She sensed this conversation shifting into territory she hadn't anticipated. Tell me something, Vincent said, his gray eyes boring into hers. If you had unlimited resources, what would you do with this knowledge you've accumulated? The question deserved an honest answer. I would create something that helps people who start from similar positions as mine, Nora said. Too many brilliant people never get opportunities because they lack access or connections. They're discounted because of where they work or where they come from. If I had resources, I'd build platforms that identify talent based on capability, rather than credentials that provide genuine pathways for people to develop and demonstrate their potential. Vincent nodded slowly, processing her words. He pulled a business card from his wallet and placed it on the table between them. Come to my office tomorrow at 2 in the afternoon. This address. Nora looked at the elegant card with its embossed lettering. I work tomorrow at 2. Then come. At 6. After your shift. Vincent stood, gathering his belongings. Don't be late. He left without another word, leaving his half-finished espresso and a $50 bill on the table. Nora sat motionless for a moment, staring at the business card. Around her, conversations resumed as customers returned to their own affairs. Pete approached with raised eyebrows. What was that about? He asked. Nora picked up the card, running her thumb over the raised text. I'm not entirely sure yet. Nora stood outside the Sterling Investments Tower at 5 minutes before 6, her heart beating faster than she cared to admit. The building stretched 40 stories into the Seattle skyline, its glass facade reflecting the golden hues of the setting sun. She had changed from her work uniform into the only professional outfit she owned, a simple navy dress and modest heels she had purchased from a thrift store 2 years ago. Taking a deep breath, she pushed through the revolving doors into the marble lobby. The receptionist directed her to the 38th floor. The elevator ride felt endless, each floor number illuminating in sequence as she ascended. Nora used the mirrored walls to check her appearance one final time, tucking a stray strand of hair behind her ear. She had no idea what Vincent wanted, and the uncertainty made her stomach twist with anxiety. The elevator opened onto a space that screamed wealth and power. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the city and Puget Sound beyond. Modern art pieces adorned the walls, and the furniture looked like it belonged in a design magazine. A young woman in an impeccable suit greeted her immediately. Miss Bennett, Mr. Sterling is expecting you in his office. Please follow me. They walked down a hallway lined with photographs of Vincent shaking hands with various notable figures, politicians, tech CEOs, and international business leaders. The assistant stopped at a set of double doors and knocked twice before opening them. Vincent's office was even more impressive than the reception area. A massive desk dominated one end of the room, but he stood by the windows, silhouette dark against the amber sky. He turned as she entered, gesturing for her to sit in one of the leather chairs arranged around a low table. Thank you for coming, he said, settling into the chair across from her. His tone was markedly different from the morning, less imperious, more measured. I've been thinking about our conversation all day. Nora folded her hands in her lap, waiting. She had learned that silence often revealed more than questions. I did some research after you left, Vincent continued. He picked up a tablet from the table and glanced at it. Nora Marie Bennett, 27 years old. You attended Washington State University for 3 years, majoring in business administration with a concentration in entrepreneurship. Then you abruptly withdrew halfway through your senior year. He looked up. What happened? The question hit harder than Nora expected. She had spent 2 years trying not to think about that period of her life, burying the pain beneath daily routines and future plans. But Vincent's direct gaze demanded honesty. My father had a stroke, she said quietly. He ran a small construction business in Spokane. When he became incapacitated, everything fell apart quickly. My mother had no experience managing the business side of things. Creditors started calling, bills piled up. I came home to help, thinking it would be temporary. Vincent listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. The temporary situation became permanent, Nora continued. We lost the business within 4 months. My father's medical expenses consumed what little savings they had. My younger brother was still in high school. Someone needed to provide stable income, and that someone was me. She paused, surprised by how much it still hurt to speak these words aloud. So I moved to Seattle, found work at Café Lumière, and sent money home every month. By the time things stabilized, I had missed too much school. Going back meant taking on significant debt with no guarantee of finishing, not with my family. Obligations. How much debt would it require to complete your degree? Vincent asked. Around $30,000 for the remaining credits, housing, and expenses, Nora replied. Plus, I would need to stop working full-time, which means no income, to send home. My father has recovered somewhat, but he can't work like he used to. My brother graduated last year and found a job, which helps, but they still need support. Vincent stood and walked to his desk, returning with a folder. Inside were printouts, screenshots of something Nora couldn't immediately identify. He spread them on the table. I also found this, he said. A patent application filed 4 years ago under your name. An innovative platform concept connecting skilled tradespeople directly with customers, bypassing traditional contracting firms. It includes reputation systems, transparent pricing models, and integrated project management tools. Nora stared at the documents, memories flooding back. She had forgotten she even filed that application. It was my senior project, she said softly. I was developing it with 2 classmates. We called it Build Bridge. The idea came from watching my father struggle to find reliable workers and clients, struggle to find trustworthy contractors. We wanted to solve both problems simultaneously. What happened to it? Vincent asked. Life happened, Nora said. When I left school, my partners continued for a while. But without me to handle the technical architecture and business model, it fell apart. They graduated and took corporate jobs. The patent application was never completed. The idea just sits, there, collecting dust in some database. Vincent gathered the papers and tapped them against the table, aligning their edges. This concept was ahead of its time 4 years ago. Now, with current technology and market conditions, it could be viable. More than viable, it could be revolutionary. Nora felt something stir in her chest, a dangerous mixture of hope and skepticism. Mr. Sterling, I appreciate whatever you're trying to do, but I'm not in a position to pursue ventures like that. I have responsibilities and limitations. Everyone has limitations, Vincent said. The question is whether those limitations are real or self-imposed. He leaned forward. I brought you here because I saw something this morning that I rarely see. Genuine intelligence combined with practical wisdom. You understand theory and reality, concepts and consequences. Do you know how rare that is? Nora met his gaze. Rare. Enough that you dismissed it completely when you assumed I was just a barista. The words hung between them, sharp and true. Vincent had the grace to look uncomfortable. You're right. I made assumptions based on your profession, your age, probably. Your gender as well, if I'm being completely honest. It was arrogant and unfair. He paused. But I'm trying to do better now. Why? Nora asked. What do you gain from this? Vincent walked back to the windows, hands clasped behind his back. 25 years ago, I was working as a janitor in a tech company while teaching myself to code at night. Someone took a chance on me, gave me an opportunity I had no right to expect based on my credentials. That chance changed everything. He turned to face her. Maybe I'm at a point in my career where I need to pay that forward. Or maybe I'm just tired of being surrounded by people who think like everyone else. He returned to his chair and pulled out another folder, this one containing what looked like a contract. I want to propose something unconventional. Sterling Investments will fund your return to university. Full tuition, living expenses, and a stipend that matches your current salary so you can continue supporting your family. In exchange, I want you to revive Build Bridge. Develop it properly this time. I'll provide resources, mentorship, and seed funding for the startup. Nora's hands trembled slightly. This can't be real. People don't just offer things like this. They don't usually, Vincent agreed. But I didn't become successful by following usual patterns. I look for asymmetric opportunities where small investments can generate outsized returns. You represent exactly that kind of opportunity. He slid the folder across the table. Read this carefully. Have a lawyer review it if you want. I'm not looking for control of your company or your idea. I'm proposing a partnership where I provide resources and guidance and you provide the vision and execution. Nora opened the folder with shaking hands, scanning the legal text. The terms seemed almost too generous. What's the catch? There's always a catch. The catch is that you'll work harder than you've ever worked in your life, Vincent said. You'll balance university coursework with building a startup. You'll face setbacks and obstacles. You'll doubt yourself constantly. And through all of it, you'll have to prove that my instinct about you was correct. That's the catch. Nora looked up from the contract, searching his face for signs of deception or hidden motives. She found only an expression of calm expectation. How much time do I have to decide? Take the weekend, Vincent said. But Nora, understand something. Opportunities like this don't appear often, and they never appear when you feel completely ready for them. The question isn't whether you're prepared. The question is whether you're brave enough to try. After Nora left, Vincent remained in his office long after sunset, the city lights twinkling below like earthbound stars. His assistant knocked, softly before entering. That was quite an offer you made, she observed. Vincent smiled faintly. I have a feeling about this one. She reminds me of someone I used to be. And if she fails, then I'll have lost some money and gained a valuable lesson, Vincent replied. But I don't think she'll fail. People who educate themselves despite having every excuse not to rarely do. Nora spent the entire weekend reading and rereading the contract Vincent had given her. She sat in her tiny studio apartment, the document spread across her second-hand coffee table, weighing every clause and implication. Saturday morning, she called her mother in Spokane. Mom, something unexpected happened, Nora began, then spent the next hour explaining the situation. Her mother listened quietly, asking occasional questions, her voice carrying both excitement and concern. It sounds almost too good to be true, her mother said finally. But honey, you've always had good instincts. What does your gut tell you? That. I'd regret it forever if I don't at least try, Nora admitted. Then you have your answer. Sunday evening, Nora composed an email to Vincent. She kept it brief and professional, accepting his offer with one addition. She wanted to continue working part-time at Café Lumière, at least initially. The cafe had given her a chance when she needed it most, and she wasn't ready to walk away completely. More importantly, staying grounded in that environment would remind her where she came from and why she was building something that mattered. Vincent's response came within an hour. He agreed to her terms and scheduled their first official meeting for Tuesday morning. The next 3 months transformed Nora's life in ways she could never have imagined. She enrolled in evening and online classes to complete her degree, her schedule packed from early morning until late at night. Vincent assigned her office space at Sterling Investments, a small but well-equipped room with a view of the city. 3 mornings a week, she still worked the opening shift at Café Lumière, maintaining her connection to the place that had shaped her perspective. Vincent proved to be an intense but remarkably effective mentor. He challenged every assumption Nora made about Build Bridge, forcing her to defend her decisions with data and logic. When she proposed features based on what seemed intuitive, he demanded market research. When she created financial projections, he tore them apart and made her rebuild them from scratch. You're not just building an app, he told her during one particularly grueling session. You're building a business that needs to survive in a competitive market. Pretty ideas mean nothing without sustainable economics, but he also connected her with developers, designers, and industry experts. He introduced her to potential advisors and opened doors she could never have accessed alone. Most surprisingly, he listened when she pushed back on his suggestions, acknowledging when her instincts proved correct. The hardest part was balancing everything. Nora attended lectures on corporate finance in the evening, then spent nights coding and refining Build Bridge's architecture. She wrote business plans between coffee orders at the cafe. She conducted user interviews during lunch breaks. Sleep became a luxury she could rarely afford. 4 months into their partnership, Vincent called her into his main office. She arrived exhausted, having pulled an all-nighter finishing a prototype for BuildBridge's contractor verification system. "You look terrible," Vincent observed without preamble. "Thank you for that boost of confidence," Nora replied dryly, dropping into the chair across from his desk. Vincent studied her with concern. "When was the last time you slept more than 4 hours?" "I don't remember." She rubbed her eyes. "But the prototype is ready for testing, and I'm caught up on my coursework." "Nora," Vincent said seriously, leaning forward, "this pace isn't sustainable. You're going to burn out." "I don't have a choice," she said. "Every day I'm not moving forward is a day I'm falling behind. Other companies are working on similar concepts. If I don't execute quickly, someone else will." "That's the scarcity mindset talking," Vincent said. "The belief that opportunities are finite and must be seized desperately. But the truth is, sustainable success comes from consistent strategic effort, not from destroying yourself in a sprint." Nora looked at him, surprised by the gentleness in his voice. "This coming from the man who once told me I'd have to work harder than I ever have in my life." "There's a difference between working hard and working destructively," Vincent replied. "I pushed you because I wanted to see how you handled pressure. You've proven yourself repeatedly. Now I'm telling you to find balance before you collapse." The concern in his expression touched something deep in Nora. For all his wealth and success, Vincent had never treated her as merely an investment. He genuinely cared about her well-being. "What do you suggest?" she asked. "Cut your cafe shifts to 1 day a week," Vincent said. "I know it's important to you, but you're trying to honor a principle at the expense of your health and your primary mission. Use that time for rest and strategic thinking instead of making lattes." Nora wanted to argue, but she recognized the wisdom in his words. "Okay, 1 shift per week." "Good," Vincent said. "Now, about BuildBridge. I've been reviewing your latest progress reports. The contractor verification system is brilliant, the transparent pricing model addresses real market needs, and your user interface design is intuitive. You're ready for beta testing." Nora felt a surge of excitement mixed with terror. "Really? You think we're ready?" "I think you're ready," Vincent corrected. "This is your company, your vision. I'm just here to provide support and occasional reality checks." Over the next 2 months, BuildBridge's beta launch exceeded even Nora's optimistic projections. Contractors appreciated the platform's fairness and transparency. Customers loved the detailed verification process that helped them find reliable professionals. Word spread organically through user networks, and the platform gained traction faster than anticipated. Nora graduated from university on a sunny Saturday morning in June. Her family drove over from Spokane, her father moving slower than before, but smiling with unmistakable pride. Vincent attended the ceremony as well, sitting in the audience and applauding when she received her diploma. After the ceremony, as families celebrated on the lawn, Vincent approached Nora's parents. "Mr. and Mrs. Bennett," he said, extending his hand. "Your daughter is exceptional. She's going to change how an entire industry operates." Nora's father shook his hand firmly. She's always been determined. When she sets her mind to something, nothing stops her. "She gets that from you," Vincent said. "She told me about your business, how you built something from nothing. That entrepreneurial spirit runs in the family." The conversation was interrupted by Nora's younger brother, who wanted family photos. Vincent stepped back, but Nora called him over. "Mr. Sterling, join us. You're part of this achievement, too." Vincent hesitated, then moved into the group. As the photographer counted down, Nora felt a wave of gratitude. 6 months ago, she had been serving coffee with dreams she barely dared speak aloud. Now she stood with her diploma, a functioning startup, and a mentor who had fundamentally changed her trajectory. That evening, Vincent hosted a small celebration dinner at an upscale restaurant. Over champagne and carefully prepared courses, he raised his glass for a toast. To Nora, he said, who taught me that intelligence and ambition exist everywhere, not just in the places we expect to find them. I made assumptions about you based on where you worked rather than who you were. That was my failure, not yours. You responded with grace and demonstrated capabilities that humbled me. He paused, his expression sincere. Thank you for proving me wrong and for reminding me why I got into this business in the first place. Nora felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you for giving me a chance when you had no reason to. And thank you for pushing me to become better than I thought I could be. 6 months later, BuildBridge officially launched with full functionality. The platform secured its first major partnership with a national hardware retailer, providing verified contractors to customers nationwide. Tech publications featured the company as an innovative solution to long-standing industry problems. Venture capital firms that had initially dismissed the concept now sought meetings with Nora. Through it all, she maintained her single weekly shift at Café Lumière. Every Saturday morning, she arrived at 6 to help with the opening rush. Pete still worked there, and they fell into their old rhythm easily, preparing drinks and chatting with regular customers. Vincent stopped by occasionally, ordering his usual double espresso with a splash of cream. But now he waited patiently in line like everyone else, and when Nora served him, he always said thank you. One Saturday, a young woman approached Nora during her break. She looked nervous, clutching a worn notebook. "Excuse me, are you Nora Bennett?" the woman asked. "I read about BuildBridge in a magazine. They mentioned you still work here sometimes." Nora smiled. "That's right. Can I help you with something?" The woman glanced around, then leaned in. "I'm a nursing student working 3 jobs to pay tuition. I've been developing an idea for a healthcare app, but I don't know anything about business or funding. Everyone I've talked to says I need connections and credentials I don't have." She paused. "How did you do it? How did you get someone to believe in your idea?" Nora looked at the young woman, seeing her own reflection from not so long ago. She pulled out her phone and opened her calendar. "What's your name?" "Rebecca." "Rebecca, I'm giving a talk at the community college next Thursday evening about building startups without traditional advantages. Come to that. Afterward, we can discuss your idea properly." She handed Rebecca her business card. "And bring that notebook. I want to hear what you're working on." Rebecca's eyes widened. "Really? You'd actually talk to me about it?" "Someone gave me a chance when I needed it most," Nora said. "The least I can do is pay that forward." As Rebecca left, clutching the business card like a precious artifact, Vincent appeared beside the counter. He had witnessed the entire exchange. "You're becoming quite the mentor yourself," he observed. Nora smiled, wiping down the espresso machine. "I learned from someone who eventually figured out that intelligence isn't determined by job titles or backgrounds." Vincent chuckled, eventually being the key word. He picked up his espresso. "For what it's worth, that morning when you challenged me changed my perspective in ways I'm still discovering. You were right. I had become someone who saw credentials instead of people. We both grew," Nora said simply. That Thursday evening, Nora stood before a packed auditorium at Seattle Community College. Students filled every seat, with more standing along the walls. She looked out at faces representing every background and circumstance, united by ambition and hope. "My journey started in a cafe," Nora began. "I served coffee to people who assumed that was all I could ever be. But what they didn't see were the hours I spent learning, preparing, and refusing to accept that my circumstances defined my potential." She paused, making eye contact with students throughout the room. "Your path might start anywhere. It might start here, in this classroom. What matters isn't where you begin, but whether you're willing to invest in yourself when nobody else will. In the back row, Vincent sat quietly, listening to her speak. He had come unannounced, wanting to see this part of her journey. As Nora shared her story, the failures and breakthroughs, the moments of doubt and determination, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years: genuine hope for the next generation of entrepreneurs. After the presentation, students crowded around Nora with questions and dreams. She stayed for over 2 hours, giving everyone time and attention. Vincent waited patiently, and when the last student finally left, he approached. "That was remarkable," he said. Nora gathered her materials, smiling. It felt right, sharing the truth about how hard it actually is, but also how possible it can be. They walked out together into the cool Seattle evening. The campus stretched quiet around them, buildings lit against the darkening sky. "Thank you, Vincent," Nora said suddenly. He looked at her quizzically. "For what specifically?" "You've thanked me many times." "For seeing past your own prejudices," she replied. "For being willing to admit you were wrong and then doing something about it. That takes more courage than most people realize." Vincent nodded slowly. "You made it impossible to do anything else." He smiled. "And you know what? I'm grateful you did." They reached the parking lot, preparing to go their separate ways. Nora to her apartment, where she would continue refining Build Bridge's next features. Vincent to his office, where other investments demanded attention. But the connection they had forged, born from an unlikely confrontation over a cup of coffee, had changed both their lives irrevocably. As Nora drove home, she thought about Rebecca and the other students she had met. Tomorrow, she would reach out to several of them, offering guidance and connections. The cycle would continue, each person lifted, helping to lift others in turn. Success, she had learned, wasn't measured only in company valuations or personal achievements. It was measured in opportunities created, in assumptions challenged, in potential recognized where others saw only limitations. It was measured in the courage to speak up when silence seemed safer, and in the wisdom to listen when pride urged dismissal. The waitress had silenced the millionaire not through confrontation, but through demonstration. And in doing so, she had transformed not just her own life, but his understanding of what truly mattered.